So the goal of this tutorial is to extract pitch, duration, and velocity information from pre-recorded sound and then apply some rhythmic treatment later on. We start opening Sphere and then we open File, Sound File. For instance, we can choose this sound right here, contrabass, ponticello, F1, mezzo forte on the 4th string. Let's then open the sound in Sphere. What's most important in this window is the minimum amplitude threshold, and if I increase the minimum threshold, I will get fewer partials. So if I have a very noisy sound, I might increase the threshold to say 40 or 50 dB to get only the most significant partials. So I proceed with the analysis, and I see this is a clearly a harmonic sound, has a partial distributed on the harmonic series, and grayscale indicates the amplitude of these partials. So if I want to import this in Max, I have to change the export format to resample frames and then export as a SDIF file. So this is my file, and that's the extension is SDIF. Now I can go to Max and use a combination of objects here. The first one I want to use is my Bach read SDIF, but then I need to translate this into a bach.roll with the caveat that I have to scale the amplitudes to a MIDI velocity. What I want to do is use the sound, keep all of the information regarding pitch, duration, and velocity. I'm not going to care about the onsets. But what I want to do also is divide the spectrum into different voices. I don't want any onset to be saved, but I do want the MIDI sense. I want also the durations, and I want the velocities. So what comes out of the MIDI sense outlet is a list of lists. In this case, I don't want to save the inner level of parentheses, but I want this to be a simple list of onsets. If I measure the number of lists, I will get a 3 because that's the number of lists I'm appending. And you can think of that as rows. Well, if I go and measure the length of each row, so say I pick the first one, I will get the number of columns. What happens if I transpose the matrix is that these will be inverted. So I will have 3 columns and 33 rows. So the list will look something like this. So now I have lists of 3 items, and each list has a pitch, a duration in milliseconds, and a velocity. Okay, so I want to now iterate through this matrix, check for each one of these elements, and see if they fit into a certain pitch range, so that I can subdivide the voices into different ranges. Remember, I need to give this an argument max depth 1 to prevent iteration from iterating through every single number. So there are different ways of doing it. The way I like to do this is using a polytilde object. In a way, is like using a for loop. So here I'm going to do the following. First of all, I'm going to check whether the incoming message is a Bach message, and if it's not, I'm going to output here, and here I'm going to save the note to a Bach reg, which is just like a ZL reg, which just stores whatever it's coming into here and outputs when a bang is received here. I'm going to store it, then I'm going to do some Boolean operation, meaning I'm going to check whether some conditions are true. And if they are true, then I'm going to output this. Every instance of the polytilde as a different index. The first instance will output a 1, the second one will output a 2, etc. So now I want to check whether this pitch is contained in a certain pitch range. First of all, I flatten this list, I get rid of the parentheses. I only pick the first element, and since I'm going to use some max Boolean operators, I'm going to output in a max format. Since we're talking about millicents, I think having integers is completely fine. And then I'm gonna say, is this more than something, and is it less or equal to something else? So here I'm checking if this value is within a range. And then I want both of these conditions to be true. If I do times, say, 600, there will be 6 semitones. So my voice spans over 6 semitones. I don't care about MIDI value 0. I only want to pick pitches that are within a reasonable value. So that's MIDI note 30 plus 36. So the first voice will be MIDI note 30 to MIDI note 36. So this will be my minimum, and this will be my maximum. I can create a select one. Lastly, I want to collect this into a list. So again, what I do here is simply take the note that is coming in from the iteration, and I'm going to store it into the reg first. Check whether the pitch is contained into a millicent range. The 600 is my span, and the 3000 is my offset. The dispoly will generate an index. So if I have 10 voices, I will have 10 different ranges. So the Bach collect will accumulate all of the message, the incoming message in the middle inlet, and will only output them when a bang is received into the left inlet. Whenever I send a message done to the polytilde, then the bang will be generated, and all of the instances will output their content at once. So what I need to do here is not only to send the iter in, but also to send a done message afterwards. So if I send my bach.roll in, I can see I have different messages, and there are some lists that are null, which is the Bach word for empty. Nothing is there. One thing I need to do is to assign a name so that then I can retrieve them. So this, I can store my voices using this sort of nomenclature. And I want to prepend this to what's coming out of here. So I'm going to also add to my sprintf set message and a special message store named. We could use easily a call object here, but since we are going pretty much to say into the Bach domain for the foreseeable future, then I would just use another Bach object that behaves just like a call object. And actually, I prefer it to call. Let's give it a name, just like the call object, the Bach shelf object can be given a name and referenced in different parts of the patch. If I trigger my bach.roll, now I have nothing in the first voice. I have something on the second voice. I have nothing on the third voice. I have something on the fourth, etc. In this case, I'm slicing the spectrum into 10 slices. Now that we have all of this material, we can use this to create different instrumental parts and so on and so forth. So I hope this was helpful. This is more of a building block for tutorials to come. But I still hope you enjoy this, and please subscribe and like the video. Thank you.